Howdy y'all, I'm Jacob. Welcome back to the ranch. We're back on the road this morning, heading into town. Got to pick up some supplies for working on a mobile chicken coop. Also gonna get y'all an update on both the goats and the sheep. The sheep are coming along real nicely. They're not fully tame, but I think they're getting close enough that we can move them out with the goats and get them out on pasture. The goats are doing really well. We've had some hiccups with the mobile setup, but working through a lot of those, and I think they're mostly all worked out. Still got a couple things I'm going to look at here in the future, but for right now, their setup seems to be working pretty well. It should work for what we need to keep them out on pasture. So we're going to go into town, get some supplies picked up, get some errands run, and then meet you back at the ranch. We're back here at the main ranch. I want to get a jump on getting the mobile chicken coop modified and hopefully finished today. We'll see if we'll get that far. But we've got a small group of chicks we want to get out into the coop. So I need to get a couple of these modifications done so it's ready to accept them. I'll take you over here and I'll show you what coop I'm talking about and what we've done so far. So this is the coop that I'm going to be working on this morning. We built this, I want to say about a year and a half ago now. And we originally built it for housing some small bantams that the missus picked up. But now I want to reuse this. We don't really have, we've got a couple of the bantams left, but they're not in here. They're running with the main flock right now. So I want to get this rig set up so that it can house a small group of chickens as well as be used for growing out the smaller chicks when we need it. A couple of things I want to knock out for this is I want to build a base for this to sit on that's removable so that whenever we move this across the ground, if we want them to be able to have a high level of impact on the soil, we can take that base off and they can directly scratch against the ground underneath the coop. But I also want it so that the smaller chicks have a nice flat bottom surface. The next thing from the base, we want to finish off the roof, and then if we have time, we want to add some roost boxes here on the back. Alright, let's get after it. Out here is just fun. Hopefully y'all can hear me over the fan, but it's kind of necessary right now. For the base on the coop itself is 6x8, so I think we want to make just a solid 6x8 frame with 2 or 3 cross members in the middle, and that should be enough to support the weight of it. I think over the top I'll put some hardware cloth, some smaller diameter hardware cloth, so the chickens have something solid to work on whenever they are much smaller. of these days I'm going to figure out these cameras. So I'm not sure how much I caught before the camera shut off, but I got the cross members in, it's squared up, and then I added 2 blocks on each end, so 2 total, 1 on each end, and that's made it pretty stiff. So I think it's going to hold together just fine. I've got a couple of these cutoff blocks that aren't really good for anything else. I'm going to come in and reinforce these corners just to give a little more strength, and then we should be good to put the hardware cloth on. So the issue here is where I overlap this hardware cloth. The overlap leaves a bit of a gap, and any type of rodent or small varmint could get through there and get in with the chickens, which bigger ones aren't so much of an issue, but with us having chicks in here, I want to make sure that's protected. So what I normally do when I have overlaps like this is I'll take a piece of wire and thread it through here and kind of sew these panels together. So I'm going to run through and do that real quick, and then the bottom should be good to go. This is the wire that comes with the hardware cloth that keeps it together in its packaging, and it makes a pretty good thread for sewing these panels together. Won't be enough, but it should be enough to cover a good bit of it. Alright, that should seal up that portion. Just gotta do this portion down here. I'm just gonna find more wire. So this is probably gonna be a bad idea, but I don't have any more of a stainless or galvanized thin wire, so I'm gonna try some MIG wire and see how it does. Alright, base is done. Hardware cloth is on. Here's a shot of the weaving of those two cloth panels together. I highly recommend, if you do this, don't use welding wire. That stuff is a pain to work with. Alright, I'm gonna get this into the coop and get it set up.
Well, I'm about out of time on this project today. I'm going to get these chickens back in, and then we're going to go across the road and check on the goats, and we'll pick up with this again tomorrow. Well, we're out here at the East Pasture now, and just finished getting the herd moved. So this section that we're in right now is a fresh area for them, and they are flat going to town. It's been interesting to watch and see what plant species out here that they're interested in, and those that they just don't touch. The health-wise, they seem to be doing pretty well. We've got a couple that have had loose stools, and I showed a video a day or two ago on Facebook with the dung beetles taking care of one of the manure piles, and that was from the goats. And it wasn't the best consistency that you would expect out of goats, but I'm not entirely sure which one that's coming from. But just sitting out here watching, most of them have good consistency in what they're putting out. So I'm hoping that's just a one-off. Maybe they got into something that didn't quite agree with them. Well, let's walk over here. I want to show you some of the changes we've made for the electrical setup on the trailer. So if you recall from the previous video when we were setting this up, I originally hooked this up with a small, I think it was a 15 watt solar panel, which is really just for maintaining batteries, not for, actually handling a load. But I was able to upgrade this, and I didn't get it on video, but I upgraded it with a 100 watt panel. And I've tried out a couple different configurations trying to increase the charge on the fence. Right now, we're still running the 1 joule, or roughly 1 joule Energizer, and this panel and battery have no issue running this setup. I did try out this Gallagher M1100 that I was originally running over at the main ranch, and that did put quite a bit of drain on it. I haven't tried it with this new panel, so I don't know if the panel's enough to really run that. But even if it was, I don't have enough ground rods for that guy. But I'm still working with it, and for right now, this setup seems to be working okay. It's not as strong as I would like, but the goats have stopped messing with the fence, so it's doing okay for right now. Let's head back out and I'll show you some of the effects the grazing has had on the pasture. Real quick before we head out over there, I'm going to show you, this is what I'm doing for the grounding system on the trailer right now. I've got a 3/8 chain running, and at various points, at various points along the chain, I've got 2-foot anchor screws that go through the chain into the ground. And for right now, that seems to be enough to keep the fence hot. It's not what I'd say the right way to do it, but it's working out okay right now. So until I get the time to put a better system together, we're going to keep using that and see how it does. So this section we're in right now is the section that the goats just left. And if I have some video of when we entered, I'll show that now. But this is what we're looking at in the aftermath of them moving through. One of the things I'm noticing as we move through the pasture is there's a lot of grass being left behind, which is largely to be expected with goats. They're not big grass eaters, so all the grass they do eat is just a plus for us. One of the nice things as we walk through this area that I've been able to see is that even in the areas that are relatively bare, there's still a decent amount of ground cover that they've trampled in, and there's not just bare soil, which is something we really want to avoid if we can. I have been noticing that the switchgrass is something that they really love, and they tend to hit that first every time they come into an area. And as much as I don't like it, they really do like going after the cactus. When I first brought them in, this cactus had a lot of berries on it that hadn't quite gone into bloom or had just finished blooming. And that was one of the first things they hit as soon as they came in here. I really don't like that they do that because you end up with a lot of thorns in them. But at the same time, I can't really complain that they're knocking back the cactus. All right, I got a couple other areas I want to show you and some of the more distant moves. Here's one effect we're really happy about, and that's them going to town on debarking the mesquites out here. I have a couple pictures of several different areas that they've done this, but it's pretty common, at least at this time of year, for them to go after the softer bark on a lot of these mesquites. But it's not just the mesquites they do it to, and I'll show you here. There's also, we don't have a lot of cedar in this field because we ended up grubbing a good bit of it. But there's still a little bit out here, and they'll do the same thing to the cedar. So those are some good things that we like seeing with this setup. I got one more thing to show you, and then I'm going to have to head back to the house, get some chores done. So this is the last thing I wanted to show y'all before we head back. This area was roughly 2 moves ago, so about 4 or 5 days ago. And when they moved through here, they decimated a lot of the Johnson grass. You can really see that it's starting to spring back pretty quickly. But one of the things you have to be very careful is a lot of this, especially with Johnson grass, is that this new growth is not good for them, not even in the slightest. They can get poisoned off that and end up succumbing to it pretty quickly. So one of the things you have to be careful for is whenever Johnson grass has real fresh growth just like this, you need to keep them off of it for a good while to make sure that they're not going to get poisoned off of it. So one last thing in here, as you can kind of see, there's a lot of grass in here that they didn't even think about touching. And I don't know really what this is, but they had no desire in messing with it. The phone app that I have says it's Purple 3 on. But if any of y'all out there have a good idea of what this might be, could you chime in down below and let me know, because I'm pretty curious. I want to get the sheep out here to see if they'll graze on it, because specifically in this area, there is a lot of it. And of course the goats just aren't going to touch it. Alright, I'm going to head back to the house and get started on chores. I'll check in with y'all first thing in the morning. Well, y'all, it's the next day. Had a little bit of change in plans. Over this past week, we've gotten about 4.5 inches of rain, which has been really nice, but the fields have been soaked, and I haven't been able to get out in them and shred them like I was needing to behind the goats. And it's looking like over the next couple days we've got more rain in the forecast. So while I've got a second that the field is relatively firm and it's not raining, I'm going to try and get some shredding done to dump back some of those forages that are in the east pasture. So I'm going to get the brush hog loaded on the tractor and get some shredding done. Before I get too far into shredding all this field, I had mentioned a couple different times about the effects the goats were having on some of these young mesquites and how they're coming in and stripping the bark off of them. So I'm kind of curious on the long-term effect that's going to have on these mesquites. So one of the things I'm going to do, I want to be able to compare that effect to just coming in and shredding them. So I'm going to mark some of these mesquites that I hit with the tractor, and that way we can track them further on down the line and see if the effect that the goats have is just as good as what the tractor would do by shredding them. I know it's not always the best thing for it, but I sure do like how a freshly mowed pasture looks. Well, got most of the mowing done, and the goats are ready to start heading back this direction. But out of diesel, so I'm going to have to leave it here. Thank y'all for coming along again, and we hope to see you again on Wag Ranch.